4,000 years ago. Our ancestors, the CHamoru and Refaluwasch, sailed the seas to settle in what is now known as our home, the Mariana Islands. Scattered throughout the archipelago are symbols of our native people, believed to be the foundation of structures that are remnants of their settlements, housing both the living and those who have passed. Before the modern-day GPS, our ancestors used their surroundings to travel our inter-island chain and beyond.
Our friends from 500 Sails give us more insight on traditional maritime navigation and how it influenced their mission.
All right, my name is Peter Perez. I'm the Executive Director for 500 Sails, and this is Marge Atelier Daria, and she is the Director of Community Programs, and she's one of two directors here. We have another Director of the Cultural Maritime Training Center, and so we are pretty much the executive leadership team, we can call it. So 500 Sails, we are a CNMI nonprofit, and our goal is a cultural revival goal. We're trying to bring back the practice of our maritime traditions here in the Marianas. When I say bring it back for the Chamorros, it really is bring it back, because it was virtually everything lost except for the Galaiti. For Carolinians, Carolinians have had an uninterrupted maritime tradition, but it is dwindling. And with all the changes in the modern world, everywhere through the Caroline Islands, it's stress. I would say it's stress. And here in the CNMI, it's also just really struggling. So our goal is to revive for the Chamorro, get the Chamorro tradition going again, and to strengthen and perpetuate the Carolinian tradition, so that the CNMI, the Commonwealth Northern Mariana Islands, and Guam have their maritime traditions back and practice in daily life.
And what Pete means by, bringing back maritime traditions, if we look what happened pre-colonial times over documentations from the Spanish navigators or other European navigators who would come through here, they wrote about when their ships would come up, there'd be hundreds. Like at least that's where the name 500 Sails come from.
Okay. 1521 is when Magellan arrived, and they saw hundreds of canoes around them.
100 sailing ships, or 500 canoes.
And then in 1565, the San Pedro arrived off of Guam. And that was when they counted 400 or 500 canoes around, a specific number. Mm-hmm. But the experiences were always the same. Whenever the ships would come in, the Chamorros would see them, they'd go out in their canoes, they'd sail back with them until they arrived. Mm-hmm. And it was constant, it's just constant. And whenever this happened, and there's a journal, there's almost always a mention of just how impressed they were that there were so many canoes around them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the accomplishments of the people in the Pacific are huge. The fact that they had no metal and they made the fastest ships in the world for thousands of years, the fastest boats, that's something to consider. The fact that when the European explorers are going around the world, they knew where they were north and south, but they didn't know where they were east and west. Mm-hmm. They took huge risks, and they had a lot of deaths, a lot of disasters, because they didn't know how to navigate. But Pacific Islanders did. The fact that they had ways to record things, they could write things on paper, and it was good for probably 1,000 years, hundreds of years, that something written down would survive. Try writing something on a piece of paper here and take it outside and see how long it'll last. The ink will disappear in a week. The paper will dissolve. It will go away. So in a situation like that where you can't really record, you don't have metal, certainly don't have computers, but even paper doesn't work. How did you survive? Yeah. You memorized it. For goodness sake, you memorized your history, you memorized the placement of the movement of stars, for where you could go out and you would know exactly what the stars are going to do. You can get from one place to another, and it's all in your head. That is something to be very, very proud of. It's all connected, and that's why we got to get our people back on the water. We got to get them back, knowing their history, knowing their place.
And knowing cultural traditions. There are things, like little sacred ceremonies that we would do before we go out into the water. And it's a connection with not only the land and with the people around you who come to say goodbye, but it's also like connection with the water and, maybe the sea spirits or whatever, grounds you. It's a completely different feeling when you're out there, and it's just a beautiful connection that's personal, and it's hard to describe until you're out there,
So 500 Sails goes back more like closer to 20 or 15 years, but we didn't become established in the CNMI until 2014. Before that, I was involved, and my wife was involved, in trying to bring this tradition back by getting a Chamorro canoe built. And the Chamorro canoe, we did successfully get one built, and we were part of a group. We started fundraising here to build what's called the Anson program. We got this canoe that was built in San Diego. It's called Tetlu. It was built by the Tetlu Inc. organization, and that was a handoff from SAIPAN Chamorro here, which is our predecessor organization. We did research, we raised money, and we handed that program off to them, and they built that canoe. That's the canoe that was in Festpac. Our focus right now is to get as many people on water as possible, and we need a lot of canoes to do that.
And while boat building is happening, we have SAIPAN Sales has the Lalata classes where we train people through. We had Master Navigator Cecilia Raculiti, Master Navigator Cecilia Raculiti, who created a curriculum alongside Peter and Emma Perez, and basically that manual has been used as a source of instruction for teaching structured curriculum. So, and it's a free class that we offer twice a year, 8 weeks, for 2 hours every Sunday from 8 to 10. We should be starting one up in the spring and one in the fall. And for those who complete the curriculum, they get a key to the Guma Sakman, and if they pass their test, right? They get a key to the Guma Sakman and are able to take the canoes out on their own if they have a crew. Besides the sailing, and besides the Lalata classes, we also have the Serenity program, which is also run on Sundays. That's still ongoing right now. Our Lalata classes probably not until next month.
Okay.
But the Serenity program is for women and teenage girls, who don't know how to swim, and so this is a class to teach them how to swim.
Yeah.
These are our islands. Okay, I mean, I'm half Chamorro, and I believe this is my home, and this is where my heritage comes from. So I'm part of the land here, and I have that strong feeling. But I want to share that.
Yeah.
And what I feel, the way that we feel, is that if you don't share your culture, then people don't learn about it. They don't participate in it, and it's not important to them.
Yeah.
But our kids will become more like them.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. We want this community to enjoy the good things that it has to offer, and to value them, and to participate and help perpetuate them, which we've seen over and over again. When someone comes in and they sail in a canoe, or they build a canoe, then they're invested in it, and they internalize it somewhat, and they really enjoy it, and they talk about it, and they practice it, and all that is good. And that's how we can be a very, very happy community, and how we can have our indigenous cultures thrive.
Here to share his personal experience with celestial navigation is Lino Olopai.
My name is Lino Olopai. That's my religious name or legal name. My Carolinian name is Urremeyon. I'm born and raised here on Saipan. It was in 1972 when I decided, to leave Saipan and go to the Yalll Island, where that knowledge was still being practiced in Yalll, talking about celestial navigation. But let me go back a little bit. Before the war, there was that constant visit from the Central Carolina, the Carolinian there, to the Carolinian that are here before we separate, and each one of us to go away. We don't have that before the war. So that constant visit, navigation between there and here, it was connected. Then it stopped when the Second World War came. And we kind of built that distance between our ancestral homeland and in the central migration. Under Dr. Kapan's invitation, a man by the name of DÅNKALU, I didn't know him at the time. Dr. Kapan invited him to reopen the traditional voyages to reconnect the Carolinian. Then in 1972 or 74, that canoe came up. And prior to that canoe showing up, I've been telling myself, hearing stories in our household, in our home, about our family in the Yalll Island, how great fishermen they are, and how great navigators they are. And there was no TV. So for a growing up child like me, it's such exciting stories to listen. That's all they do. Us kids will sit on the floor and listen to elders.
Right.
That was the teaching back then, and it's still part of our tradition today. I don't think I finished my elementary schooling. I'm not a high school graduate. I'm not a college graduate, but I graduated in my traditional system through our elders that I grew up with at the time. That first canoe that came to Saipan to reconnect us again. And who is the first one to learn that they are coming?
You?
Me. Because the brother of the navigator that reopened that route was a language teacher from Yap, and I was a language coordinator for the Peace Corps program, Hapun. That's where the training for the volunteers held. So we met and we speak the same language. And after our program, he told me, Lino, please take care of my brother. His name is Repanglu. He's going to come up with a canoe next year. I don't pay any attention, at the time he goes this year or now. One morning, I came out there. I usually do that in the morning and look out on the ocean, admiring the beautiful ocean in the Pacific. And I looked to my left, and there was this weird-looking craft anchored right out here, a canoe. I didn't know it was a canoe. It's like, to me at the time, it was like a spacecraft that came. Because back then it was just boats built out of plywood with a sail, but never that unique look. I tell you, that thing gives me a goosebump, and the name of the navigator kicks in. So I went running from my place here to my brother Dr. Capet house is just up the road, where the Ut is.
Right.
I came running down and I looked at this brown, muscular looking guys, and I just my relative family, I've been dying to see you guys. I mean, all those things were going through my head.
Right.
And it really uplifted my spirit, to see the origin of my background and the thing I've been planning to do for many, many years growing up. I've been intending to visit our ancestral homeland. So that was the chance that came. I said, I'm going to jump on this canoe. What comes, whatever. So, anyway, we entertained them. And that evening, as the guys were sitting around them, they were sitting on the table at the wood up there, and they were talking, and then when I get my chance, because it's impolite, to just speak in among the elders.
Right.
And when my chance came, I say, excuse me, but which among you named Repanglu? Everybody freaked out, including the navigator, Repanglu himself. He said, who's interested in knowing who's Repanglu? It's me, Joseph, Repanglu brother. Asked me to look for him and take care of him. And he said, come and sit with me. So he scooted in, and I said, I shouldn't be doing that. And I shouldn't be refusing as well. So he held my hand, and what is your name? So I told him. Say, I am Repanglu. So that was Tawel, Joseph, brother. So that's how we got connected. Anyway, I missed that trip for many unknown reasons. I guess I missed that trip, and my heart went to pieces. The second voyage, I think it was 70, somewhere in 70. My brother Mao and one of the chief, my uncle, came. And that's when I jumped on that canoe. Nobody knew that I was going on that canoe, but I made up my mind ever since I was growing up that one of these days I'm going to visit my ancestral homeland. The second voyage, I jumped on that with my brother Mao Pielu and my uncle Otolik, which I didn't know at the time that Otolik was one of my uncle's chief on the island of Sarawak. Woman saw the holder and the keeper of navigation and other sacred knowledge, the woman. On our side to come in and try to learn navigation from us, we refer that person to people that know navigation. Then it's up to that person whether to share it or not. to extract his knowledge, the procedure, the thing we need to do. I just don't go to him and say, teach me how to navigate. Insulting, he wouldn't give it to you. It's a hearing knowledge. It belongs to certain clans, certain, we call it dialect, and I forgot. So we just don't do that. It's not that we don't want to share, but there's a procedure, process we need to go through. Because every evening we gather at the man's house and we drink tuba, coconut fermented alcohol. We drink. And in that process, it's a controlled event, a controlled gathering. We don't get drunk and sleep on the highway. It's a small place. When you get drunk and you're sleeping out there, we'll bring you under the men's house. Make sure you're okay. But in that drinking process, every evening, when we start to get drunk, our elders start to get drunk, and they loosen up. And that's when the hidden word and event comes out, and that's where we learn. So we use tuba as a key to open up those hidden languages, and we know that. So we all bring our tuba at the end of the day and bring it to our canoe house. This is our canoe house. There's this group. So we bring our gallon day in and day out at the end of the day. No tuba.
Yeah.
Each one cut your own tuba. You bring 2 tuba. One is for the group. One is for the specialist. We call that kind of tuba ashil fel-maram. Tuba under the moonlight or something like that. And you take that, and let's see, he's the specialist. He's the only one who knows that knowledge. So I take that 1 gallon and give it to him. I try, and that he may not give you anything, first. You take a while. You take another tuba the following day, talk stories. The next day again, and you'll be asking the same question back and forth, checking each other out. It may take you weeks, months. Then he will say, yeah, you come on this day. Don't bring tuba. So that extra tuba, we call it ashil fel-maram. And very first experience, which is exciting, to answer your question, that was the most exciting and scary trip I ever undertake. Although Ma, when he was here, we sleep at my house next to surf club. And I'll ask him question after question. Suppose we capsize. What about if the big rope? Stop worrying. Oh, we'll handle all that. Stop worrying. So I took a deep breath. Okay. So I would like whoever is listening to our interview, be grateful that those people share those knowledge with you. And that's what I always say. I say, that's why I'm reluctant. It's not that I don't want to share, but how they use my heritage, my language properly.